The day after I got diagnosed with diabetes, I had to tell the administration in London about my situation, and they kindly recommended that I pack my bags and leave the program and head home to Los Angeles to take care of things. Now, I thanked them for their concern and basically refused their request. So because I was going to stay, I needed to tell everyone else at RADA why I had missed the day before, and about my lovely trip through London's fine healthcare system. So our director, Jeff Bullen, gathered the entire ensemble, and I sat across from them and told them what happened in as little but enough detail as possible, and about my decision to finish out the quarter. Then, thanks to all of my strange behavior, I then got to tell some of England's finest acting teachers, including Julian Glover and Lorna Marshall, that the real reason for my leaving their classes constantly to go to the, as they say, loo, was diabetes, because I can only imagine what they must have wondered I was doing, leaving like every half an hour. And then I also had to tell the folks back at the dorm because, well, my ailment was a hot topic of conversation, and I had no choice but to be honest about what was going on. Now, all of this was absolutely unbearable. A few months earlier, an acting teacher back in New York had explained to our entire room that we were enough to fulfill any role that was in front of us, or larger than that, any opportunity in life that lay ahead. We were enough. And for some reason, this really, really clicked for me, and I got it. And now, in London, for the first time, I feel like I am less than. I am not enough. Not only this, but I now have to tell tons of people about the fact that part of my body decided to completely fail me. And in a way, you feel like you have let yourself down, and you don't even know that it's happening. And sure, I felt shame and anger and sadness, but mainly I felt numb, because this was the only way I knew I could get through the rest of the semester and graduate from NYU with a BFA in drama. And I was praying that I was enough just to do that. Now, now that I think about it, I mean, it's ridiculous. An actor is the opposite of numb. They are like a raw, exposed nerve constantly like dancing between emotional states. And I couldn't possibly feel all the shit that was just handed to me. So numbness was like the only option to get through this. So that's what I did. And because of my decision to stay abroad and finish out school, days after my diagnosis in London, my dad jumped on a plane and flew 6,000 miles to come check on me. And it's a trip that I hold really, really dear. Now, here's where it gets weird. Basically, the first night we're there, he's like, let me take you out to dinner. And I'm like, sure. And we go to some nice place that I don't remember. But what I do remember is we got seated and handed menus, and as I'm starting to study this menu, my dad taps on my hand and does one of these. And I look at the guy diagonal from me at the next table, and he's taken out a little black pouch, and he is prepping a syringe with an insulin vial like 4 feet away from me. I shit you not, in the middle of the freaking restaurant. And this is like days after my diagnosis. And whoever you are, thank you. Thank you for having the courage that night to show me and the entire restaurant that you are enough. Now, my dad took this as a sign to tell me that I could totally take my insulin at the table. And when the food arrived, I then dismissed myself, went to the bathroom, went into a stall, checked my blood sugar, and gave myself insulin, and returned to the table to eat. And that must have been like my 30th injection of my life. Now, I continued this pattern of going somewhere and hiding in a corner for what must have been like thousands of injections at this point. And in coming back to LA, it was kind of like a fresh start. All the people that I had to confess to weren't around. They were maybe back in New York, but they were all over the place. And I could start over with nobody knowing that there was anything wrong with me other than my family and maybe one person that I trusted, because in case anything went wrong, they'd be the person who would speak up and go, hey, she's diabetic, call an ambulance. But I was really good at hiding this. And it took years to slowly build up the courage to like check my blood sugar in front of my family. But this was absolutely terrifying, because what if the reading was bad and what would they think of me? And you get a lot of bad readings when you start out. I mean, heck, I have had tons of bad readings in front of you. So how did I get here to telling you, going public in front of, I don't even know who you are watching this, that I prick my finger on camera and I insert a plastic tube, I mean, let's call it like it is, a catheter in my side every 3 days for steady flow of insulin, and tell you that I'm living with one of the most misunderstood diseases you can possibly have. Because trust me, people know that it's not a death sentence, but they still think you're going to lose a foot. And some of them wonder if it's contagious. Well, it took a lot, and it's basically taken nearly 8 years. It took the love and support of those around me who didn't look at me like I wasn't enough when they noticed me pulling out a syringe out of my purse. It took years of my doctors firmly insisting that I could do better about managing my blood sugar. It took people asking if I was wearing a pager, or plenty of other really uncomfortable questions for me to realize that they didn't actually think less of me. They were just curious. And in some cases, scared, like me. You know, when I applied to work at Red Cat, where I just celebrated my 3-year anniversary, I actually unplugged my insulin pump and left it in the parking structure in my car, so that no one at the interview could possibly notice the strange pager on my hip and wonder what it was, or know what it was, and what I was living with. And I do the same thing at auditions. You know, who would possibly cast an actress with a disability? Well, lots of people. Lots of people who have believed that I was enough to fulfill the role, even when I didn't. And to be perfectly honest, even when setting out to create this series of videos, this vlog, I was terrified of what people would think. And my friends and my family members were like, are you sure about doing this? I mean, what if a future employee or a theater director, for that matter, Googles your name and this pops up? I mean, I almost pulled the plug a couple days before doing this. I got overwhelmed a few days into doing this, because those are numbers that I dread. The ones that you see on my Twitter feed, I don't like doing them. They scare me, because those numbers are actually real, tangible proof of the health or the complications for me now and down the road when I'm like 90. So why go public? Well, it's the fact that we all have something that we struggle with for a while or daily. We all have something that we want to hide. We all have something that makes us feel like we're not enough sometimes. And just like the guy in the restaurant, this thing is part of my life, and it sucks. Trust me, I wouldn't wish this on my worst enemy, but It absolutely doesn't define who I am or limit what I can do. And if someone out there sees this and considers me less than enough because I have diabetes, that's fine. Because I know I am enough. And all of the other millions living with this are too. And trust me, we all struggle with this every single day. And I really hope that doing this crazy project helps shed some light on what living with diabetes is really like. I really hope that it not only strikes your curiosity, but it also alleviates some of your fears. So thank you for watching and for sharing your questions and your comments and your concerns with me and sharing my vlog with those you know. Cheers.